Have you ever found yourself, really dreaming of owning a piece of paradise in Thailand?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe it's one of those modern, cozy flats right by the beach, perhaps somewhere like Phuket,
Mhm.
or maybe a quiet spot out in the countryside. Lots of people are drawn in by that lovely weather. And let's be honest, the good value. It's a dream, isn't it? A dream a lot of foreigners share.
It absolutely is.
Mhm.
That dream is incredibly appealing. But the reality, turning it into an actual investment, well, it's not always straightforward.
Right.
So this deep dive, what we're doing here is trying to pull out the most important bits, the nuggets of knowledge, really, from our sources. We're mainly looking at excerpts from Thailand property law, a foreigner's guide.
Okay.
And our mission, basically, is to help you get your head around the main things you absolutely need to know about Thai property laws if you're a foreigner looking to buy.
Exactly. We're going to try and untangle that legal landscape, look at the actual practical options you have for ownership, maybe shine a light on some potential pitfalls.
Yeah, the things to watch out for.
Yeah. And break down what it all really means for, well, for your wallet.
And right up front, maybe the core message is this. Foreigners, generally speaking, can't own land directly in Thailand.
Okay, that's the big one.
But, and this is the good news, there are perfectly legal, well-established ways you can secure property.
Okay, so let's unpack that then. When we talk about property law there, what are the fundamental legal frameworks we need to know about? Where do we even start?
Well, you can think of them as maybe three pillars holding everything up. First, you've got the Civil and Commercial Code.
Right.
That covers the basics, contracts, leases, mortgages, that sort of thing.
The nuts and bolts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then there's the Land Code Act. And that one's really crucial because it sets that big rule about foreigners and land ownership. Often surprises people, actually, how strict it is. And finally, you have the Condominium Act. That's the one that carves out that specific path many foreigners use, allowing direct ownership, but only of condos. Getting to grips with how these three interact early on, that's really key.
So if the Land Code Act is that critical, what's the big overarching rule? The one thing foreigners absolutely need to get.
The single most important thing to know, the bedrock rule really, is that generally foreigners cannot directly own land in Thailand. The Land Code Act is, well, crystal clear about that.
That sounds like a pretty significant hurdle, a brick wall almost. I bet people immediately start looking for ways around it. Are there any exceptions? Or is that just wishful thinking?
That's a fair question.
Yeah.
But honestly, they're incredibly rare, really rare. They usually involve very large investments. We're talking upwards of 40 million baht typically, and it has to be approved by the Board of Investment, the BOI.
Wow.
And even then, if you qualify, ownership is restricted, usually to a small plot, about 1,600 square meters for residential use, and it's tied to your lifetime, non-transferable.
So not really an option for most people dreaming of a holiday home or retiring there.
Exactly. For the vast majority thinking about that condo in Phuket or a small place in the country, this BOI route just isn't realistic.
So this core restriction, it genuinely shapes how foreigners have to approach buying property. It sounds like you need a completely different mindset.
Absolutely. It means you have to explore the alternative routes, the indirect ways to secure property rights. It's not about finding a loophole around the law, but finding a way through the existing legal structures.
Okay, that makes sense. So the direct path to owning land seems pretty much blocked for most folks. But as you said, don't despair. For those still eyeing that slice of paradise, what are the established legal workarounds? What other doors are open?
Well, one of the more straightforward ways to actually own something outright, and it's a very, very popular choice, is through condominium ownership.
Right, condos. They seem to be the go-to for lots of foreigners. Why is that? What makes them so popular, and what's the absolute first thing I need to know if I'm considering buying one?
It's popular precisely because the law allows direct foreign ownership of the condo unit itself. That's the big draw.
Okay.
But the crucial thing, the absolute point you must remember, is the foreign ownership quota. People often call it the 49% rule.
Ah, the 49% rule.
Yeah.
Heard of that.
Yeah. Foreigners, collectively, can only own up to 49% of the total sellable area, basically the units, in any single condo building that's registered under the Condominium Act.
So only just under half the building can be owned by foreigners.
Exactly. And this 49% rule isn't just a guideline, it's strict. So the moment you find a unit you love, you must check if that specific building still has available foreign ownership quota.
So it's a real factor.
Oh, definitely. It's why sometimes the unit might look available, but it's actually off limits to a foreign buyer.
Yeah.
Timing and checking that quota is paramount.
That quota sounds like it could be a real bottleneck then. So if I find my dream condo, but the foreign quota is full, am I just out of luck for that specific unit? Are there other angles?
Generally, yes. For direct foreign ownership, you'd be out of luck for that unit. You'd either need to look for a unit in a different building with available quota, or, well, you might explore having a Thai national buy it, perhaps in a lease arrangement back to you, but that gets complicated. Or, heaven forbid, using a nominee structure, which, as we'll discuss, is a very risky path.
Right, definitely want to avoid those.
Absolutely. So, checking the quota before you fall in love with a specific unit. Super important.
Got it. Okay, so let's say I find a condo, the quota is fine. What's the actual process like? How do I buy it?
Right, the process. First, you absolutely must transfer the money to buy the condo from abroad, and it has to be in foreign currency.
Okay, critical point. From abroad foreign currency.
Super important. It's a legal requirement to prove the funds didn't originate inside Thailand. You'll need solid proof, like a SWIFT transfer confirmation from your bank back home.
Okay.
Then, the Thai bank, where the money lands, will issue specific documentation, usually called a foreign exchange transaction form or FETI form or something similar.
Yeah.
It proves you brought foreign currency in and exchanged it for Thai baht.
Hold on to that form, I assume.
Definitely. Keep it safe. It's crucial for the final step. You'll take all your documents, your passport, that bank paperwork, the signed purchase agreement, down to the local land department office. They handle the official registration and title deed transfer.
Sounds pretty clear step by step. Now, what about later? If I decide to sell my condo, do those same foreign ownership rules kick back in? Does it make selling harder?
Yes, they absolutely still apply. If you plan to sell to another foreigner, they also have to qualify under that same 49% building quota.
Ah, okay.
And crucially, they also need to prove they brought foreign currency into Thailand specifically for the purchase.
So it limits your pool of buyers, potentially.
It can, yes. It can affect who you can sell to easily and sometimes how quickly you can sell. Plus, remember, there are transfer fees and taxes involved in selling, which we should probably touch on later.
Good point. And inheritance.
Inheritance is another key consideration. If your heirs inherit the condo, they also have to meet the foreign ownership requirements.
So if they're not Thai and the quota's full or they can't bring money in?
Exactly. If they don't qualify or can't for some reason, they might be legally required to sell the condo, usually within a specific time frame, like 1 year.
Wow, okay. Lots to think about even after purchase. So the condo route offers that direct ownership, which is appealing, but you've got that 49% quota hurdle.
Yeah.
What if someone wants, say, long-term security, but maybe not full ownership? What other safe options exist?
Long-term lease agreements. That's another very common, very secure way for foreigners to hold property rights for a long time.
How long are we talking?
Leases can be registered for up to 30 years. That's the maximum single term allowed by law.
30 years. Okay. And what are the critical things to know about these leases? Is it just like renting an apartment back home?
Not quite. A few key differences. First, registration is vital. Any lease longer than 3 years must be registered at the land department.
Must be.
Must be. To be fully legally binding and protect your rights against, say, the owner selling the land out from under you. It's not just a formality, it's essential.
Good to know. What about renewal after 30 years?
Renewal isn't automatic. This is a big one. You can often negotiate renewal options into the original lease agreement, say, an option for another 30 years. But it's a contractual right, not a guaranteed legal right like owning freehold. It relies on the agreement you make up front.
So negotiation is key there.
Absolutely. And on the plus side, leasehold interests, meaning your right to use the property under the lease, can usually be inherited. But again, best to have that clearly stated in the lease agreement itself.
That's interesting. I also heard something about what you actually own with a lease, something different about buildings versus land.
Yes, that's right. And it's a fascinating and important distinction in Thai law. Any structure you build on leased land, like a house, a villa, is considered legally separate from the land itself.
Really?
Yes. So you can legally own the building outright, even though you only lease the land it sits on. This is very common, especially for villas built on leased land plots. You own the bricks and mortar, but lease the ground.
That is a huge distinction. Okay, so what are the main benefits of going the leasehold route, especially maybe for someone not ready to commit fully or perhaps relocating temporarily?
Well, often the upfront costs for a leasehold are lower compared to buying freehold property, so it can be more affordable, more accessible.
Makes sense.
It also offers more flexibility. If your plans change, it's generally easier and quicker to transfer or exit a lease compared to selling a freehold property.
Less hassle, maybe.
Potentially, yes.
Hmm.
And often you have reduced responsibility. The landlord, the landowner, is typically responsible for major things related to the land itself, maybe infrastructure, while you, as a lessee, are responsible for the building you occupy or own on that land.
Okay, that clarifies the lease option really well. Now,
Yeah.
what about people who want even more control? Maybe they want to buy land for a bigger project or have more, say, long-term. I hear setting up a Thai company is the way some foreigners go.
Correct. Using a Thai limited company is another popular route, specifically used to own land indirectly. The company owns the land, not the foreigner personally. Right. It's often the structure chosen for buying land plots, villas, or properties intended for business use.
So how does that actually work? How is it structured so the foreigner has control even if the company owns the land?
The standard setup, the most common structure, involves the foreigner holding a minority of the shares. Typically, 49% is the maximum they can hold directly.
Okay, just under half again.
Right. And then Thai nationals hold the majority share, the other 51%. This structure means the company is legally classified as a Thai entity.
And a Thai company can own land.
Precisely. Now, the foreigner, despite only holding 49% of the shares, often maintains effective control through other mechanisms. Things like weighted voting rights attached to their shares, maybe holding specific director positions or using different classes of shares. These are detailed in the company's articles of association and shareholder agreements.
Sounds complex. And I've definitely heard warnings, pretty strong warnings, about something called nominee structures. What exactly are those and why the big fuss?
This is probably the single biggest risk area with the company structure. And yes, the warnings are serious for a reason. An illegal nominee structure is essentially a sham.
A sham.
Yes. It's where the Thai shareholders aren't genuine partners or investors. They're just holding shares on behalf of the foreigner, purely to meet the 51% Thai ownership requirement on paper. They have no real control, no real financial interests. They're just a front.
And the authorities don't like that.
Not at all. They are actively and increasingly cracking down on these arrangements. They have ways to investigate, looking at who really funded the company, who makes decisions, who benefits.
And if you get caught?
The consequences can be severe. We're talking significant fines, the possibility of the authorities forcing the company to sell the land, and potentially even criminal charges, including imprisonment, for both the foreigner and the Thai nationals acting as nominees.
Wow, okay. Fines, losing the property, even jail time. That's much more serious than I realized. I guess some people might still be tempted, maybe think they won't get caught. Why the crackdown now? Is the risk higher?
The risk is definitely real, and I'd say it's increasing. The authorities are getting much better at spotting these structures. They look closely at company accounts, shareholder backgrounds, meeting minutes, the actual business activity or lack thereof.
So they're digging deeper.
They are. The crackdown is part of a wider push for transparency and to ensure the spirit of the Land Code Act protecting Thailand for Thais isn't being illegally circumvented. Honestly, it's just not worth the risk. The potential fallout is huge.
Point taken. Avoid nominee structures at all costs. So even if you set up a company completely legitimately with genuine Thai partners, what are the other potential downsides or risks compared to, say, a condo or a lease?
Well, there's ongoing compliance, for one. A Thai company has legal obligations.
Like paperwork?
Lots of it. Meticulous accounting, annual audits, regular tax filings, submitting reports to various government departments. It needs more administrative work, more ongoing costs for accountants and lawyers.
Right. More hassle, more expense.
And then there's the potential for disputes with your Thai partners. Even with the best intentions, disagreements can happen.
Over money decisions.
All of the above. That's why having a really robust, well-drafted shareholders agreement right from the very beginning is absolutely crucial. It should clearly define roles, responsibilities, profit distribution, how decisions are made, and critically, how you'll resolve disputes if they arise.
Get it all in writing beforehand.
Absolutely. And finally, there's always a risk that laws could change in the future, potentially impacting how foreign involvement in Thai companies is regulated. It's less likely to change drastically overnight, but it's a background risk to be aware of.
Okay, so we've covered the main paths. Condo, lease, company. Beyond choosing the right path for you, what are the absolute must-dos, the essential steps to protect yourself no matter which route you take?
This brings us to a really critical point. Do your homework. Proper due diligence is not just a good idea, it's absolutely vital. Think of it as your primary shield against problems.
And by homework, you mean things like title searches, really digging into the property's history, what are we actually looking for there?
Precisely. It means getting a qualified legal professional to thoroughly check the property's title deed and ownership history.
What kind of red flags?
You're looking for anything dodgy. Are there outstanding mortgages or liens against the property? Any existing legal disputes or claims? Does the seller actually have the clear, unencumbered right to sell it? Are the property boundaries correct? Is the access legal? It's like getting a full health check for the property before you commit.
It sounds like checking the car's history before you buy it, but maybe even more important.
That kind of mindset. You need to know if there are hidden problems that could completely derail your investment down the road. A clean title search is fundamental.
That's such a great analogy. A property, just like a used car, can have hidden problems that cost you big time later. So after that thorough check, the next obvious step has to be getting lawyers involved, right? Proper legal help.
100%. Reputable, independent legal counsel isn't just a nice-to-have in Thailand. It's a must-have, an absolute necessity.
Why so essential?
Well, a good property lawyer who specializes in foreign transactions will do several crucial things. They'll review all the contracts, the purchase agreement, the lease agreement, the company's set of documents, ensuring they're legally sound and protect your interests.
Reading the fine print.
Exactly. Thai contracts can be complex, and often the standard versions favor the seller or landlord. Your lawyer helps you understand everything, negotiates better terms on your behalf, and guides you through the whole process, from deposit to final registration.
Sort of like having a professional guide through that maze we mentioned.
Precisely. Think of it this way. You wouldn't try to perform surgery on yourself based on a YouTube video, would you?
Definitely not.
Well, navigating Thai property law without expert legal advice can be just as risky. A mistake can have really profound, expensive consequences. Don't skimp on good legal advice.
Okay, crystal clear on that. Now, one thing I hear thrown around sometimes, a bit of a misconception maybe. Does buying property in Thailand automatically mean you can live there? Does it get you residency?
No. That's a very common misunderstanding, and it's important to clear it up. Buying property in Thailand, whether it's a condo, a house on leased land, whatever, does not automatically grant you the right to live there permanently.
So owning a villa doesn't mean you get a visa.
Correct. Your right to stay in Thailand is governed entirely by immigration laws and depends on you having the correct visa and, potentially, a residence permit. Those are completely separate processes from property ownership. You need to make sure your visa status allows you to stay long-term, independent of owning property. Don't confuse the two.
Okay, good clarification. So it sounds like there are clear paths, but also, as you said, pitfalls, quicksand spots. What are those main gotchas that trip people up, even savvy buyers sometimes? What's the biggest mistake you see foreigners make?
Well, based on what our sources highlight, the recurring traps tend to be getting involved in those illegal nominee structures we talk about, a huge risk.
Right.
Second, simply not doing enough due diligence. Skipping those vital checks on the title, the zoning, the developer's reputation.
Cutting corners on homework.
Exactly. And third, fundamentally misunderstanding lease agreements, particularly around renewal terms and what happens at the end of the lease. But if I had to pick the #1 mistake overall, it's probably cutting corners generally.
How so?
Relying on informal advice from, someone they met at a bar or the seller's agent instead of getting independent legal counsel, or trying to save a bit of money by skipping proper searches or using template contracts. Those shortcuts almost always end up costing far more in money, stress, and heartache in the long run.
Sound advice. Don't cut corners. Okay, let's shift gears slightly. What does all this mean for the wallet? Beyond the actual purchase price, what are the extra costs people need to budget for when they're closing the deal?
Yes, the closing costs. Property transfer costs can definitely add a significant chunk to your total expenses. It's crucial to budget for them.
And these are paid when?
These fees and taxes are typically all due and payable at the land department office on the very day the property ownership is officially transferred and registered in your name, or the company's name, or the lease is registered. So you need the funds ready.
Okay, can you break down the main fees we're talking about?
Sure. Generally, the big one is the transfer fee. It's usually around 2% of the property's government-assessed value.
Assessed value, not necessarily the price I paid.
Correct. The government has its own valuation, which might be lower or sometimes higher than your actual purchase price. This 2% fee is typically paid by the buyer, but like most things, it can be negotiated between buyer and seller.
Okay, 2% transfer fee. What else?
Then there's stamp duty.
Yeah.
That's usually 0.5% of the assessed value or the sale price, whichever is higher. However, and this is important, stamp duty is only payable if the specific business tax doesn't apply. You don't pay both.
Okay, one or the other. Stamp duty or specific business tax. We'll get to that one. Any other small fees?
Yes, usually some smaller registration fees, maybe fees for witnesses at the land office. And if you're getting a mortgage from a Thai bank, which is difficult but not impossible for foreigners, there would be a mortgage registration fee as well, usually 1% of the loan amount.
Got it. Now, what about taxes on top of those fees? You mentioned specific business tax?
Right, specific business tax or SBT, this is a bigger one, levied at 3.3% of the assessed value or sale price, whichever is higher.
Who pays that?
SBT is typically paid by the seller, but only if they're selling the property within 5 years of acquiring it, or if the seller's a registered company. If SBT applies, remember, you don't pay the 0.5% stamp duty.
Okay, so SBT is mainly a seller's concern, unless maybe negotiated otherwise. What other taxes?
There's also withholding tax. This one is also technically paid by the seller, but it's deducted, withheld at the time of transfer at the land office.
How much is that?
It depends. If the seller is an individual, the withholding tax is calculated on a progressive scale, factoring in the property's assessed value and how long they've owned it. Gets complicated. If the seller's a company, it's simpler. A flat rate of 1% of the assessed value, or the actual sale price, again, whichever is higher.
So transfer fee, maybe stamp duty, maybe SBT, withholding tax, that adds up. How should a foreign buyer approach this? How do you factor it into your budget and maybe even the negotiation?
Understanding these costs is absolutely key for budgeting accurately. Don't just budget for the purchase price.
Add maybe 5–7% on top?
It can be in that ballpark, yes, depending on the specifics and who pays what. But it's also leverage for negotiation.
How so?
Knowing who typically pays each fee, like the buyer usually pays the transfer fee, the seller usually pays SBT stamp duty and withholding tax, gives you a starting point. You can then negotiate to share some costs, or maybe adjust the purchase price accordingly. Get everything agreed upon clearly in your purchase agreement.
Document everything.
Always. Also remember currency fluctuations. If you're bringing money from abroad, the exchange rate can change between agreeing the price and actually paying the transfer fees. Factor in a buffer for that.
Good point.
And again, this is where good legal advice is gold. Your lawyer can give you a precise estimate of all the fees and taxes applicable to your specific transaction and ensure the calculations done at the land office are correct. Our sources even provide a helpful summary table breaking these down, which is worth looking at.
Very useful. Okay, we focus mainly on residential. What if a foreigner wants to use property for a business, like opening a shop or a small guest house? Is that a completely different set of rules?
Well, the fundamental restriction on direct foreign land ownership still applies, same as residential.
Okay.
So foreigners typically use property for business, either through those long-term leasehold options we discussed, or by operating the business through a properly structured Thai limited company that owns or leases the property.
Same structures, different purpose.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
But a huge consideration for business use is zoning.
Ah, zoning laws.
Right. Absolutely critical. You can't just set up any kind of business anywhere you like. Thai zoning regulations are quite specific about what types of commercial activities are permitted in different areas. Residential zones, commercial zones, industrial zones.
So you need to check before you sign anything.
Definitely. Check with the local authorities, the Tesabin or Bortor, and get legal confirmation that your intended business, whether it's a restaurant, an office, a small hotel, whatever, is actually permitted on that specific piece of property according to the local zoning plan. Skipping this step could mean you lease or buy a property you legally can't use for your business.
Nightmare scenario. What kind of businesses do foreigners commonly run from properties they control in Thailand?
You see quite a variety. Things like operating a small home-based business or consultancy from a condo or house.
Yeah.
Setting up retail space like a shop or gallery, but again, strictly depending on commercial zoning. Short-term rentals, like Airbnb-style letting, is popular in tourist areas like Phuket. But that's increasingly regulated now, often requiring specific hotel licenses, especially in condo buildings.
Ah, that's a tricky one.
It is. And also using property for service-based businesses, maybe a spa, a language school, offices for client meetings again, always subject to that crucial check on zoning and obtaining all the necessary business licenses.
Right. So there we have it. It really feels like buying property in Thailand is, well, a bit of a journey, doesn't it? Definitely not as straightforward as just picking out a nice condo in Phuket, signing a paper, and getting the keys.
Not quite that simple, no.
You really have to think carefully about these different structures, leasehold, the company route, and be incredibly diligent about the paperwork, the legal checks, that 49% rule for condos.
It requires care,
Yeah.
definitely. And if we try and connect this back to the bigger picture, the why behind it all, that entire legal structure, particularly the Land Code Act going way back to 1954, it's fundamentally rooted in a national policy of protecting Thailand for Thai citizens.
Understanding that principle is key.
I think so. Understanding that fundamental principle really helps you navigate the market successfully. It explains why these restrictions exist and why the mechanisms we've talked about, the condo quotas, the leaseholds, the company structures, are designed the way they are. They operate within that protective framework.
That's a great perspective. But look, it shouldn't necessarily put people off entirely, right? As you said, there are legal ways.
Absolutely not. Plenty of foreigners from all over the world have successfully navigated this process. They've bought condos, leased land, and built beautiful homes, set up companies, created their dream life or investment in Thailand. It's entirely possible.
So the main takeaway advice seems to be
Do your homework. Be incredibly diligent with your due diligence. Get really good independent legal advice from professionals who specialize in this area and know the local laws inside out. And just be patient. Understand it's a process, it takes time, and might have a few more steps than you're used to back home. It's more of a marathon than a sprint.
do the homework, get good advice, be patient. Got it.
So maybe the final thought to leave everyone with is this. What does this all mean for you personally? When you're considering property in Thailand, think beyond just if you can buy something. Think about how the specific legal path you choose.
Condo, lease, company.
Right. How might that particular choice uniquely impact your future flexibility? What does it mean for selling or transferring the property later? How does it affect the overall security of your investment, especially if your personal situation changes or the market shifts down the line? Choosing the right structure is just as important as choosing the right property.